it is another Throwback Thursday here on Dakota News Now. Joining us this morning to discuss this week's historical marker is none other than Lori Kent with the Local Lou podcast. Hello.
Good morning. How are you?
Welcome back for another Thursday.
I know, another year. Yay.
Yes, so excited to hear about the historical marker today. So tell us all about it.
Well, this one's a great way to kick our year off right. It's full of generosity and kindness and just like hashtag goals. So Albert Mansor is the historical marker, and it's located about a block northeast of the current Laura B. Anderson School. And this historical marker talks about Albert Mansor was born in 1898 in Lebanon, and he ends up here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. As a teenager, in the early 1910s, he comes over to help an uncle who has a grocery store off Cliff Avenue and Rice Street, which, if you know, today is also a local grocery store. It's Mekong Market. So it's still a family-owned local grocery store, different family, different building, but some really cool history. Yeah. So he ends up helping with this place for a while, and then all of a sudden a tornado hits in 1924. His uncle has passed away, and the tornado hits, and now Albert has to figure out what he's gonna do. We're super lucky that the Argus Leader not only has a great picture of the aftermath of the tornado, it also tells us what was going through Albert's mind, because he talks about in the middle of the tornado being in the store and just praying. And we know that one of his prayers was answered. He survives, but his store doesn't. But the community gathers around him, and they do what they can to salvage the pieces of the store that they can. They end up getting an old horse shed, and they put that at where Laura B. Anderson School is, and he starts selling groceries out of that. Yeah, wow. Pretty amazing. And he does that, and he ends up being able to pay off his debts and get a new store built, again, at where Laura B. Anderson is today. And that was the Mansor's Red and White food store. And that ends up operating in the Riverside neighborhood for decades. Albert Mansor dies in 1981, but the community has not forgotten him. But why? Because he is so kind and generous. He left this legacy behind him. When kids would have good grades, he would give them matinee tickets to the State Theater. At the end of the school year, he would do pony rides and a picnic at Lean Park. During the Depression, he sold groceries on a handshake for people that couldn't afford them. So in 1995, 14 years after his death, the park is renamed Mansor Pioneer Park. And 7 years after that, a historical marker is put up so future generations don't forget.
Wow. So you just talk about, persistence is a big key in this, just continuing to keep going even after the tornado.
Absolutely.
I guess, how important do you think it is to recognize these people in our community that have such a rich history and bring so much to the community?
Well, it's so important. This historical marker specifically, family, friends, the neighborhood, these are the people that wanted this historical marker made. They came to the Minnehaha County Historical Society and said, hey, we need to remember him. They raised the money, they put this together to make sure that he's remembered.
And how cool is it that we even got to document, you said the aftermath of the tornado, there's pictures. How awesome is that?
I love it. I love when we can piece together these parts of history. There's an episode of the Local Lou podcast where you can hear this historical marker, but at the time I had not found when the tornado actually happened. The marker just says that a tornado happened. And so it took me a little while, but then I found it, and it was like, that's so exciting too when you can piece together these own pieces of our history.
Wow, very cool. Well, thank you so much for being here this morning. I'm excited for next week for another historical marker.